everyone, welcome back to While You Were Cleaning. So I have a confession to make. With all of the decorating and DIY videos that I have put together, I have yet to put out a single piece of spring or Easter decor yet this year. So if you're like me and you're a little bit last minute, we're about 2 weeks out from Easter now, and so if you just haven't had the time or the money to really sit down and put together any elaborate DIYs, today's video should be very helpful for you. I've come up with several DIYs that just take about 5 minutes to put together, and I used all Dollar Tree products to put these DIYs together. So I really hope that today's video is very helpful for you if you just really wanted to add something to your home, but maybe you're like me and you just didn't have a lot of time to do it. So let's go ahead and we will get started with today's video and get into these DIYs, and I really hope that you enjoy it. I'll start off today's video with a wreath DIY. I'm going to be using this 12-inch bamboo wreath. I like this one because it's more narrow. And then on this wreath, I'm going to be adding some of these speckled Easter eggs. They come in a 12-pack. I used 1.5 packages for this DIY. And I'm just hot gluing these eggs grouped together, 3 of each color, onto this wreath, and I just kind of staggered them a little bit there on the wreath. One tip I wanted to add for you was put your hot glue gun on low heat, because otherwise you're going to be holding these eggs in place for a little while the glue dries. So low heat is a lot quicker to get this done, so you don't have to wait as long for the glue to dry. And then you can glue those to the wreath and then also to each other as well for some more stability. And then I'll be adding some of this foliage. This kind of reminds me of a fern branch, but it just says foliage on the tag there, so I'm not sure what it's exactly supposed to be. I'm using all of the leaves available on that one stem, and I'm just going to hot glue the stem up underneath the egg so that you don't see it, and then you can glue some of those greenery branches in place onto the eggs as well, just to get them to go exactly where you want them. And these greenery pieces are really just to fill in those gaps where there aren't any eggs. You could also use some other small eggs if you wanted to fill in those gaps. But I really love the way that this turned out with the colors kind of grouped together and then with the greenery added on there. Next, I have a Garland DIY to share with you. I'll be using these wooden bunnies that come in a 5-pack, and then 6 of these eggs, 1 of each color of these speckled eggs. Again, you could use any eggs that you might find there at Dollar Tree. Then I'll also be using some of this twine and then some of these white pom-poms. So first off, I hot glued a white pom-pom to the back of each of the bunnies so it looked like their tails. And then I added a piece of wire to the end of my twine so that I could easily pull it through the little holes on each end of these eggs. And then I just alternated, did an egg and then a bunny, egg and bunny, did 6 eggs and the 5 bunnies. And here you can see the bunnies don't lay very straight on the string, so I want them to look like this, and that's not how they lay. And so I added a little bit of hot glue to the back of the second ear there, and then glued that onto the string so that they would lay flat. Just make sure that your eggs and bunnies are all spaced out exactly how you need them before you glue them in place. And here's how that garland turned out. It's super easy, simple, quick to put together, and you could adjust these to be any length that you want. I just spaced them out so they would go across the front of my mantle. Next, I have a simple flower arrangement to put together for you, and I'll be using this jar that I found there in the kitchen section, along with one of these lids, and then you can use any tulips or flowers that you like. I'll be using these crocus flowers. I really like these ones. I did get them in a grab bag from Michael's, but they have them at Dollar Tree as well. And I just added this new metal lid to my jar. It fits right on the top there. And I love these jar lids because they really space out those flowers super well, so you don't have them falling out of the jar or falling out of place where you want them to be. So it's a lot easier to make an arrangement because the jar lid holds your flowers in place. I just cut all of the flowers off from the main stem and then added them. I didn't like how the stems looked in the bottom of this jar though, so I wanted to add some eggs. So you can pick up any eggs there at Dollar Tree like the ones that I showed you, but I also got these in a Michael's grab bag, so I decided to add those to the bottom, but whatever you have will work. And I just really love how simple this arrangement was to put together, and I love the way that it looks with the jar and the flowers. They pair together really well. For my next project, you'll need a pair of books. These I got from the thrift store, but you can pick up similar sized ones at Dollar Tree as well. I'll also be using some brown paper and one of these white metallic markers that you can get in the Crafter Square section. I'll also be using this stencil. I've used this in the past. As you can see, it has been used before, and the stencil is the perfect size to use along the binding of these books. So I took the dust jacket off of one of the books, and you'll have to do this for each book. Lay it out on your brown paper, trace around the outside edge, and then you can recover your books with this brown paper instead. And then I added some of this pink and white gingham ribbon. They've been having this in the kind of floral or crafting section of my stores. And then I used this stencil and the metallic marker to add Happy Easter along the binding of these books. So I did start from the outside right edge of the book and work my way in. That way I was sure not to run out of space for my letters. And this first one I had some issues doing, but it was a lot easier once I stood my book up on end and did it that way instead. The angle that I was doing it at here didn't work very well. So you can just trace around your stencil, and then once you remove the stencil, you can fill in where the stencil kind of kept you from filling in the whole letter there. And then just keep doing that until whatever phrase that you add on there is all filled in. You could do He is risen. You could do something with 3 books instead of 2. Whatever you want to do is perfect. This project was so simple to put together, and for me it was free because I used all items that I already had on hand, but it really just adds a little bit of something to your decorations. Next, I'm sharing another simple flower arrangement. I'll be using this pink jar that I just found very recently at Dollar Tree, and I'll also be using 2 of these foliage stems that are similar, and then a package of these foam eggs, and then some of these small flowers. These are ones that I already had on hand, but they have the same ones there at Dollar Tree as well. So I added my 2 foliage stems into the jar. I did bend the bottom of them a little bit so they were the height that I wanted them to be, and then I threaded on the whole package of these little egg ornaments. Next, I cut off 3 white and then 3 pink of those flower stems, and then just slid them right into the jar along with my foliage and eggs that were already there. So this one is super simple to put together. It just adds a little bit of something, and then if you want to, at the end of Easter, you can take these eggs off, and then it could be a spring flower arrangement instead of Easter themed. I really love this next project. I'll be using one of these terrarium planters and then a moss bunny from this 3-pack here. They also have some white styrofoam type bunnies there in the store, and then one of these carrots and some nautical rope. You could also use some brown twine type rope if you wanted to use that instead, and then also any type of greenery or little flowers that you might want to add. First, I looped the rope into the bottom of this terrarium for size, and I glued it in that circle shape, and then I'm just going to be looping the rope around to make it into a nest shape. I didn't have any raffia or anything really on hand that would make a good nest, and so I decided just to use this rope, and I thought the color of this rope would go well with the moss bunnies as well. So once it's all glued in place, then you can kind of bend it and then put it back into the terrarium and then just adjust it so it looks kind of like a nest. I also wanted to let you know here that I do have some other Easter DIY videos out, and I'll link those at the end of this video so you can go watch those after this one. Next, I cut off a piece of greenery and added that into the back, as well as just one of those orange carrots, and then just placed my little moss bunny right there in the center. And then I just added that on top of this little candle holder that I also picked up at Dollar Tree. This He Is Risen sign that you see off to the left here is also from Dollar Tree. I just found it there with the new wall art signs that they had out. I really love this next DIY as well. I used this little tray type container that I found in the party section at Dollar Tree, and then a package of these speckled eggs, some wooden stems, and these are the stems that are a little bit more narrow. They have some that are kind of chunkier as well. And I just started laying these in the bottom of this container, and I'm just doing them in a circle shape. They are supposed to look like a nest. Again, I was planning on using some raffia for this, but for some reason I can't find it. And so I really love the way that these little sticks turned out though, using those instead. So I just added that egg in the center to make sure that that opening stayed right there in the center. And then you can just add some eggs on top. But then I decided I wanted to add some of these string lights that have the greenery on them. Here you can see how they look all lit up. And I just removed the eggs from the center of my nest, and I just had to remove one of those sticks so I could put the battery pack right down there in the center. And then I just maneuvered that wired lit garland around inside of my nest. I did have to move some of those little sticks just to hold it down a little bit. And then I added some moss right on top of the battery pack and then replaced my eggs there in the center. And I really love the way that this one turned out. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was had an idea of what I was going for, but it looks really cute, and I really do like the way that the lights really add something to it. Next is the simplest DIY ever. You'll need one or however many of these pots as you want, 3 of the little carrots, and then some moss. So I decided to put 3 of these together. I added some moss down in the bottom first, and then kind of pulled it up the sides, and then just added 3 carrots into each of these mini pots. And the pots do come in a 3-pack. So you could just do one, you could spread them throughout the house, you could display them together. It was just really easy and affordable to put together, just a couple dollars. These golden eggs are a new item at Dollar Tree this year, and I'll be using a pack of them for this next DIY, and then just whatever greenery that you might have on hand. So first I took my drill and I added a hole to the top of this egg, and it is super thin, so you have to be careful because it does crack really easily. So you can pull it off, or you can use your scissors to cut some off. I cut holes in the top of 3 of them, and then I added moss to the bottom of those, and then some greenery to the top. And so these are supposed to look like you planted a little plant in the top and now it's growing out of the egg. And I really love the way this little project turned out, and again, it took less than 5 minutes to put together. You could also glue these eggs in place to make sure that they don't move at all. Lastly, today I'll be using 2 more of these small clay pots and then another couple of these speckled eggs from this 12-pack. I'll also be using some of this pink yarn. I did find this at Dollar Tree, and some moss. So inside of my pot, I'm going to go ahead and add a styrofoam ball so I don't have to fill the whole thing with moss. I added the moss on top and then glued my egg in place. And then I just cut a small piece of wire, and I'm going to cut off 3 small 1-inch sections of this pink yarn. And then I wired those together. You can wire them nice and tightly together so you don't have to worry about any of the yarn falling out. And then I just went through and I untwisted some of the yarn. You could also run a comb through it if you wanted to, and I did glue them together in the center there so they stayed together and covered up that wire piece. Once you get it fluffed up the way you like it, you can take a pair of scissors and trim it down to a short flower shape. I cut off the extra wire and bent that up on the end, and then added some hot glue there and added it to the top of my egg in the pot. And as you can see, it kind of looks like a little cactus or a succulent. It's just a fun little project that you could put together. You could even do it with your kids. Instead of moss, you could use some small rocks or pebbles or something like that in these pots instead. I really enjoyed sharing these short 5-minute DIYs with you today. I hope that they were helpful for you, and if you put any together over this weekend, please let me know, and I'd love to see pictures if you wanted to send them to me on Instagram or Facebook. Again, watch one of the videos above if you want more Easter ideas, and thank you all so much for watching today. Bye!